It's time that we put all those sponsorabilities aside and remember a better time. A time of rugs and a time of rats. A simpler time. I was a Rugrat kid through and through. So much so that Rugrats is how I learned to understand how time worked. Pretty deep, huh? No, really. I would use Rugrat episodes as a basis for the passage of time. I'm not even kidding. With me, it was never, how long until we get there? I'd ask instead, how many Rugrat episodes until we get there? That's a real thing. That's how I grasped time as a kid. And I'll tell you what, it sure has been a lot of Rugrat episodes since I've used this as a measurement of time, and life has gotten a lot harder since. Anyways, all that aside, I'm here to talk about the beginning of this glorious little show and share some rather wild development sketches. Now, if you don't know, Rugrats shared the title of the first Nicktoon ever. Before this, you would have probably never even known that Nickelodeon existed. They did have some good shows, though they were nothing compared to what Nicktoons would bring. The first 3 shows to air ever, all at once, back to back in the same block, they started strong. These were Rugrats, Doug, and the Ren and Stimpy Show, which released on August 11th, 1991. Honestly, I didn't know Rugrats was this old up until about 30 minutes ago, because I probably didn't have my first memory until like 1999 or something like that. And they were making episodes when my memory started spawning in anyway, so I just always thought that it always has been around and always will be around. Alright, so how did Rugrats even come to be? Well, Nickelodeon wanted to expand their content after getting to a point where they financially could, and with the help of producer Vanessa Coffey to do so, who previously helped Nick with an animation special known as the Thanksgiving Fest of 1989. This was only the second time that Nick has actually given animation a shot. I believe that Special Delivery might have been the first one. I'm not too sure about that though, don't quote me. Anyways, the special was a success and thus they wanted even more. So they then enlisted the help of Vanessa again to produce original creator-driven series. To recap and make a long story short, Vanessa went to Nick with a background in animation to find work. Nick could not afford to do so, as starting in the world of animation is expensive, and especially if it's something original. Though she was then greenlit to make just a small animation special, and that worked well, so they then allowed her to seek out artists in hopes of finding something original after some back and forth, insisting that it be original. And after she put out the word to animators about looking for any ideas that they may have and wanting these ideas to be as basic as possible, I'm talking even just a few drawings at most. Many pitches came through, though they were dwindled down to about 3. Which you can already guess which were the ones that were, dwindled down to. Anyways, after their first pitch picked being Doug, a show everyone should know, the next would be an idea from a previous Simpson animator, an animator who was actually said to have helped inspire the Simpsons' yellow color and even Marge's blue hair. He even had a character loosely modeled after his appearance, that character being Dr. Nick. And who was this animator? It was none other than Gabor Chupo. I'm sorry if I got that name wrong. I'm not really good with the names here, okay? So, Nickelodeon took a liking to his work, and Vanessa contacted him, apparently just the day after he left The Simpsons even. Nick really liked The Simpsons at that time, and they pointed out that there shall be something innovative like that, but for kids. Something fresh, something hip, something happening. Gabor then enlisted the help of his wife, Arlene Kladsky, a fellow legendary animator herself. She would come up with the concept of the characters being babies in the first place, drawing inspiration from a film Gabor made about their son, basing the show off of one simple question: if babies could talk, what would they say? So that's just the idea that she gave to Gabor, simply that it be about babies, which led him to start crafting ideas about the show revolving around babies. This awoke a core memory for Gabor as a child, one about his newborn brother. The memory, funnily enough, had to do with the fact that babies couldn't do so much as even keep their heads up on their own, and youngster Gabor couldn't grasp this concept. He thought, wow, there's no way something could be this stupid, right? No, that's really what he thought. Crazy how this would bring the concept for Rugrats about. Anyways, thinking that because they acted so stupid, not my words, these were his, they had to be hiding something. Something that adults couldn't see, like their secret genius when nobody was watching. And with this, a premise was thought of. They just had to do something based upon this idea. Fast forward a few months, around the summer of 1989, and many ideas later, Arlene was given the task to pitch the premise and all of these wild plans back to Vanessa about the show that they had in mind. They didn't even have so much as a drawing prepared, and nothing at all in terms of writing. So I guess basically they pitched the premise, and did a damn good job of it because Vanessa ended up loving it. Thus, everything would be set in motion. Vanessa did state one rule that Gabor and Arlene had to follow. This being that the character designs not be realistic, cartoony only. And that's what they did. So, the first characters created would come along being Tommy, Phil, Lil, Grandpa, Stu, and Dee Dee. Though this wasn't enough. Thus, the rest of the characters would come shortly after to kind of fit in with this group. The funny thing is, once Chucky's character was designed, the idea of him being a bully was actually tossed out. Could you imagine? Then, not long after this, the idea of a girl bully came about, and Angelica was created, as sort of a bridge between the adult world and the baby world. Honestly, kind of genius, really. And now, for a fun little tidbit. The name of the show itself, Rugrats, actually came from Paul Germain, one of the show's writers at the time, who heard of the kids being called Rugrats by people in the Navy. Nickelodeon was actually kind of hesitant towards this name, as they thought people would mistake it for a show about talking rats. Who would have guessed it? They were actually also worried about it being too babyish too, because the show, was revolved around babies. Nick actually had a pretty strict parameter about these shows' audiences, being for 6 to 11-year-olds. The idea that the creators of the show had in mind anyways were to balance a mixture of elements that both kids and adults could enjoy for the show, which they nailed, judging from watching it later on in life. So, anyways, that's just about it. The slight backstory to Rugrats, a show that would air right alongside Ren and Stimpy and Doug, and a $40 million investment. And though it may not have been the most popular of the bunch at first, it certainly proved itself in the long run and gave the creators confidence to create more awesome shows as well, like Rocket Power, The Wild Thornberrys, and so many, many more. Also, just shouts out to Vanessa Coffey for making all of this work, putting in all the effort to be the person in between the creators' ideas and the studio's reaction to said ideas. Balancing 3 different projects in a field Nickelodeon truly hasn't explored yet just had to be a wild task. And who knows what Nickelodeon would have become without her. I mean, come on. Nothing but respect. Lastly, before I let you all go, I gotta share some of the early development art for Rugrats. It's actually wild. I believe these were created by Daryl Bowen, who worked as a character designer for the show, and I'm going to let you draw your own conclusions about him. So first, we'll start off with Tommy. Yeah, that's it. Take a good look. Now Spike. Yep, there he is, all his glory. And finally, here's Phil and Lil. There you go. There you have it. There are some of the original designs. Wild, huh? Now back to work for me. Bye-bye.